Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to IGCSE Success, your one-stop shop for everything IGCSE English. Now in today's video we are exploring the photograph method, a really powerful technique or tool to really elevate your descriptive writing. Now this method will allow you to capture detail in such a vivid way that the reader will feel like they're experiencing whatever you're describing firsthand. Now the photograph method uses a 4-paragraph structure, with each paragraph offering a different camera angle, focusing on different aspects of a scene, and you really can't go wrong with this. So with all that said and done, let's go. So let's begin today's lesson writing to describe the photograph method. So I'm going to briefly explain what that method entails, the different sort of steps if you like. Then I'm going to give you my top 10 tips for creating successful descriptive prose, and I'm going to end with the piece of descriptive writing that I wrote yesterday. I do recommend checking out that video. I uploaded it yesterday. Enough waffling, let's get on with the video. So what is the photograph method? So as I said in the intro, it consists of 4 paragraphs, and I put there in the white box, you, time permitting of course, you are more than welcome to write more than 4 paragraphs, but I do recommend sticking to 4, and that will allow you to really develop the images, the contrast, etc. that you use. So the photograph method, 4 paragraphs. It starts with a wide angle shot. So starting with a big picture view to set the scene and show the full setting. So you are essentially describing things from afar. You might be describing the weather, the outside of buildings, etc. Then the zoom in shot, your first zoom in shot will focus on a particularly interesting detail. So in the model that I'm going to read shortly, I zoom into the window of a household and describe the scene. Zoom into is your contrast. Okay, it's really important that your descriptive writing isn't just one note, and irrespective of what prompt you are given, you show contrast. Okay. Find a second close-up that looks different to create a strong visual contrast in imagery. Okay, so that is the focus of zoom in shot 2. And your last paragraph should be a zoom out shot. And usually it's a good idea to use a circular structure, so returning back to your original scene, but perhaps focusing on something slightly different and giving a fresh perspective. Now let's look at my top 10 tips for creating successful descriptive prose. These aren't in any particular order, by the way. So my tip number 1 is to use precise and impactful vocabulary to enhance your description. And I can't stress this enough, guys. Choosing the right words really makes all the difference. So for example, instead of saying she looked sad, you could say she stood by the window, a forlorn figure, her gaze lost in the rain. So in terms of the diction there, the adjective forlorn and that noun gaze. Okay, so striking, precise vocabulary choices for effect. If you choose the right words effectively, we're painting a picture. We're not just stating a fact. It's a bit like, I guess in many ways it's the show don't tell method, which is also one of my tips a little bit later on. Strong vocabulary doesn't just tell the reader what's happening. It really, I guess, makes them feel it. Now, my tip number 2 is to use a variety of sentence structures to create flow and emphasize key details. Now, sentence structure is often neglected because lots of students are hardwired to really focus on imagery and vocabulary, but in my opinion, it's equally as important. And mixing up your sentence structures keeps your writing engaging. It helps emphasize key details. For example, short sentences can create impact. Longer, more detailed ones or complex sentences can build atmosphere and flow. Let's compare these two things, okay? So let's say, for example, she was nervous. She walked onto the stage. Everyone stared. Okay, so you've got those 3 simple sentences. Kind of loses the intended effect, right? So we could vary it and say, Heart pounding. She stepped onto the stage. Silence fell. Every eye in the room fixed on her. Okay, so the rhythm here, I guess, feels more natural, more dynamic. It's really important that you play around with sentence lengths to really keep your writing smooth and compelling. Tip number 3, use vivid imagery, but steer clear of overused cliches like the plague. I hope someone appreciates that. Maybe it's just me. Now, it goes without saying that vivid imagery makes your writing more powerful, but it all comes down again to the right words. So instead of saying, for example, she was exhausted, you could say she rubbed her eyes and stifled a yawn, her head growing heavier by the second. It's simple, it's natural, and it paints a clear picture. Now, just remember that strong, specific language helps your readers see and feel the moment, and no cliches are required. Now, remember, to get full marks as well, we don't need to use these cheesy similes or metaphors. If you're not the best at using metaphor, similes, personification, onomatopoeia, the list goes on. Just focus on your vocabulary and using precise choices to create evocative images. Now, number 4 is really important. It goes back to what I said before. You don't want to create a piece that is one note, because that's boring. So ensure your paragraphs are varied and include contrasting elements to add depth and interest. So your zoom in 1 and zoom in 2 should contrast with each other. Okay, obviously varied paragraphs are going to keep your writing dynamic and interesting, and let's say, for example, mixing contrasting elements such as calm and chaos can add depth if done successfully. For example, you might describe a peaceful morning, then shift to a sudden storm or a moment of tension, and this contrast, again, if done successfully, not only will keep the reader engaged, but will also highlight the key emotions or the events. It's really important that you change up the pace and mood in your paragraph to create, I guess, this well-rounded, engaging description. Now, number 5, use a variety of punctuation marks to enhance the impact and flow of your writing. I did a video recently looking at how to employ sophisticated punctuation into your creative prose. If you've not seen it, check it out. Now, punctuation isn't just about grammar. It's a really useful tool to, I guess, in many ways, control the rhythm and impact of your writing. A well-placed comma, for example, can create a pause that adds suspense. An M dash or N dash can make a sudden shift in thought, whilst ellipsis leaves a sense of mystery. And also, guys, don't forget the power of an exclamation mark to really emphasize a point. I guess the important thing is to play around with different punctuation marks to keep your writing dynamic and keep your reading hooked. Okay, it all comes back to the sort of mechanics of your writing. So the non-negotiables, the really important things are your vocabulary, your sentence structure, and your punctuation, and to some degree more important than what you're actually writing about. Now, of course, for paper 2, you get 2 options. If you look back at some past papers, Cambridge sometimes likes to include an object prompt, and I put here, choose the object prompt only if you are confident in your writing skills. Invariably, this can be tricky for a number of reasons. It requires you to be really specific and detailed in your description. However, as I've said, if you're confident in your writing skills, absolutely go for it. But if you're unsure, it's best to pick the other option, which might be a scene of some sort. Objects need more than just, I guess, basic descriptions. Otherwise, it will be static, and we don't want that. They need to evoke emotions, memories, or tell some sort of a story. So only choose an object prompt if you're ready to bring it to life with, I guess, depth and clarity. I think one year it was to describe the contents of a wardrobe or something. I mean, even I would struggle with that. Now, number 7. If you watched my video yesterday, you know this is really important. Don't treat descriptive writing as a still image. Create a sense of movement and progression. Descriptive writing, or at least successful descriptive writing, shouldn't feel like a frozen moment. It's all about, as I put on the screen, movement and progression. So instead of just describing what something looks like, think about what's happening around it. For example, it's the wind rustling the leaves. It's the sun setting slowly behind the mountains. Adding action gives your writing flow and really keeps the reader engaged, as if they're almost stepping into the scene rather than just observing it from the outside. The good old show don't tell method. Use it throughout your whole piece, guys. Obviously, the show don't tell method is one of, I guess, the golden rules of descriptive writing. So instead of simply telling your reader what's happening, let them experience it. And you have to show that through your language, your sentence structure, your imagery, everything in your writer's toolbox. So let's say, for example, instead of saying she was nervous, which is a telling, quote unquote, telling sentence, you need to show it through her actions. So, for example, her fingers trembled as she adjusted her hair. Her breath came in quick, shallow bursts. Okay, by engaging the reader's senses and emotions there, you allow them to feel the moment with you, making your writing far more immersive and impactful. And that's really what you want to try and aim for throughout your whole piece. Number 9, almost there. Engage all of your senses to make your images vivid and bring them to life. Again, this kind of sort of links back to the show don't tell method. Don't just describe what something looks like. Think about how it sounds, smells, feels, or even tastes. No, you do not need to just use every single sense in your descriptive piece, because that might be a bit over the top. For example, instead of just saying the forest was quiet, again, a rather bland telling sentence, try the silence of the forest was broken only by the soft rustle of leaves beneath my feet. Okay, when you involve all of the senses, your descriptions become much richer, much more immersive, and it really creates a world that the reader can step into. Now, number 10, but personally I think this is probably the most important. Plan your approach. Have a clear sense of direction throughout your piece, okay? Planning your work is any work, actually. Any work, paper 1, paper 2, literature, any essay where you have to write an essay. A plan is essential to crafting a successful outcome. So in the case of this, a successful descriptive piece. So before you dive into writing, think about the structure of your description. What details are the most important? What order should you present them in to create the best impact? Having a clear plan helps you, I guess, stay on track and makes sure every little detail serves a purpose. Trust me, guys, a little bit of planning up front can save you a lot of time and avoid you wishing for the ground to open up and swallow you whole. Thank me later. So I'm about to read a full descriptive writing essay from one of the most recent FLE paper 2s, which I actually wrote yesterday. If you want to see me wrestle with the process from start to finish in real time, be sure to check out the video I uploaded yesterday. I'll admit it was a bit of a struggle, but I think I was pleased with the final result. This is an example of what a top band response looks like. For this section, this last section of the video, I won't be offering commentary here, as I covered that in my video yesterday. Instead, I'll simply read through the essay, and I hope you'll be able to see how I've used each camera shot to craft every descriptive paragraph. The family. The house stood like a glowing beacon against the cold winter night, its glowing light spilling through the frosted windows and onto the snow-laden ground. A soft haze of smoke curled from the chimney, dissolving into the starlit sky, whilst warm silhouettes flitted across the window panes, their movements lively and unguarded. Even from a distance, the sounds of laughter and muffled conversation carried through the crisp air, a stark contrast to the stillness outside. The towering Christmas tree, adorned with glimmers of silver and gold, was just visible through the glass, its peak crowned with a soft, steady glow. It was a portrait of warmth, joy, and togetherness, framed by the hush of a winter's evening. Through the frosted glass, I watched them, a family wrapped in warmth and joy. 3 children wove through the living room, their laughter infectious as shreds of wrapping paper lay strewn across the polished parquet floor, glowing softly in the flickering candlelight. The fire crackled in the hearth, sending golden embers swirling up the chimney, whilst shadows stretched and swayed across the walls. In his reclined chair, the father grinned, his face alight with unwavering happiness, whilst the mother, her auburn curls cascading over her shoulders, darted after the children, her laughter bright and unrestrained. The majestic Christmas tree reached towards the ceiling, its ornaments catching the light like scattered jewels, whilst the star at its peak gleamed with a steady, otherworldly glow. The scene before me was one of pure, unfiltered joy, so full, so complete, that it seemed to hum with life. It was time to move on. Beyond the next frost-laced window, the scene was starkly different. The same golden light poured from the lamps, but it did little to chase away the heavy stillness in the air. A boy sat slumped at the far end of the sofa, absently scrawling through his phone. His face was bathed in the cold glow of the screen. Across from him, a woman sipped from a mug, her gaze distant, lost in thoughts that no one asked about. At the dining table, a man flipped through the pages of a newspaper. His jaw was tight, his presence more obligation than choice. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, its decorations sparse, its lights blinking mechanically as if forced into festivity. There were no remnants of torn wrapping paper, no echoes of laughter, no sign that the day was different from any other. The silence between them was not peaceful. It was heavy, an unspoken understanding that whatever had once bound them together had long since begun to fray. It was time to move on. Outside, the world moved on, indifferent to the lives unfolding behind closed doors. People walked the streets, some alone, others in pairs or groups, their footsteps creating a rhythmic pulse against the quiet night. Families, bundled in scarves and coats, drifted past Christmas window displays, their laughter and conversation rising above the murmur of the city. In contrast, some walked in silence, shoulders hunched, eyes cast downwards, unaware of the joy in the shops or the lights shining above. The Christmas lights seemed to illuminate more than just the street. They cast fleeting glimpses of warmth and togetherness in windows, but also revealed the gaps in others' lives, where families sat apart, disconnected by invisible walls. The streets told a story of families in all of their forms, those bound by love and those separated by distance, but all in their own way, searching for connection in a world that was often too busy to offer it. And that, guys, is the photograph method. And that's all for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Do consider subscribing. As always, leave your feedback below, and I will see you again very soon. Until next time, bye-bye.